Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch has signed off UK's membership to, brace yourselves, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. That all happened in New Zealand.
Yes, as a major Indo-Pacific trade bloc, this trade deal could gain British business access to a market of 500 million people with fewer barriers.
Let's talk to former advisor to the Bank of England and the Treasury, Dr. Roger Gewolb. Good to see you this morning, Roger. What do we make of the CPTPP? I mean, is it going to make a significant difference to us?
No, I don't think so. It's very nice to see some good news surrounding this government and something that really nobody can criticize. But yet there are critics. The pros and the cons. The pros are that this is one of the world's largest trade groups. But of course, we're already doing business with 99% of the members, and it's only going to increase Britain's gross domestic product by less than 1%. But it's nice to join this Asia-Pacific group because it strengthens our ties with the new security alliance with Australia and the United States, helps us have allies in our defenses against China, etc. The critics on the other side are saying the government is gaslighting us as usual. This is not a replacement for the loss of the EU. It has as many members, but as I say, only 1% of GDP. And it's a bit having passed Brexit, but not really delivered it. They are saying it's kind of like being told short people are attractive after you've just had your legs amputated.
I mean, many of the papers this morning are heralding it as a great victory for Brexit. I get the sense that you wouldn't quite agree with that statement.
Well, I think they're two different things. The thing that's lacking in the CPTPP is the United States that initially was going to join, but then went and set up its own Indo-Pacific group. Of course, they are not members of the EU, and that was the whole point of the EU. So how valid a criticism that is, I don't know. But I don't think it's a great victory other than in perhaps the security sense and the sense that Britain is pivoting towards the Asia-Pacific axis, which is where all the action is happening these days, which is a very good thing.
Yeah, well, I suppose it might play out better in the long term in that sense. Can I ask you, Roger, as we've got you, because we've had some really interesting chats over recent months about interest rates and inflation and all these sort of things. What do you make of, I mean, look, the PM's promise to halve inflation by the end of the year, stalled at the moment, 8.7%. What's driving that stalling, and what can be done, if anything, to get inflation down by the end of the year?
I don't think that is likely, Stephen. I think two questions, what can be done and what is driving it. Basically, what is driving it is the PM and the Bank of England continuing to raise interest rates. We don't have the kind of inflation that can be combated by raising interest rates as they do, for example, in the States. You raise interest rates to curb consumer spending. We all know we're not spending a lot here. We're cutting back.
I mean, look, you've talked about this before. Explain this to me, Roger, because you've talked about this before and you make it sound like absolute perfect sense. You increase interest rates to curb spending, to lower inflation. But this inflation, you say, is being caused by things that we can't avoid spending on. So increasing interest rates makes no difference, just increases the pain. If it's that obvious, why are they still doing it?
That's a great question. It's the emperor's new clothes. They're so stuck in a rut now, and the sheer madness has gotten to the point where Andrew Bailey, the lovely governor of the Bank of England, has actually told us not to ask for wage rises and that companies should not seek to increase their profits too much because we're the ones driving inflation. No, what's driving inflation is the gigantic interest rate rises that he should have been making. I mean, I'm sure he meant well. He was appointed at the beginning of COVID. He wanted to keep British businesses from failing during the pandemic, so he kept interest rates low. But he should have started to raise them gradually sometime thereafter, not wait all this time and then dump them all on us in a year. The second thing is all of the money that they've printed too much at the wrong time. They just seem to have, and this is historic with the Bank of England back to the mid-19th century, they sometimes get the timing so wrong on inflation. Those are the things driving it. What can be done about it is that they can, first of all, not raise any more interest rates. And then I have laid out 6 things that they could do, which I've spoken about on GB News, to immediately alleviate a huge burden of the cost of living. If I can remember them all this morning. Number 1, temporarily reduce VAT across the board. Number 2, temporarily reduce fuel duty. The government's take on fuel, when a liter of petrol was £1.80, they were taking over £1.50, reduced that temporarily, stop the interest rates, stop the mortgage crisis, and reverse the Mr. Hunt's recent 1/3 increase of corporation tax, which happened in April, and of course has by now been passed on to all of us. These are the things that are increasing inflation. It's insane. And they're going further, actually, if I can carry on for a second. Yeah. The proposal now is a flagrant political move to abandon inheritance tax. Yeah, sure, that's a great thing to do, but not right now, which will cost £7 billion. Okay, that's fine. Let's do that because we'll get the blue wall. We'll get the blue wall vote back that we lost. That $7 billion could have been used on nurses, doctors, rail strikes. Saved us all the misery from this summer. They've got $7 billion lying on the table that they're willing to get rid of, and they want to use it so that wealthier people can pass on their inheritance. I don't think so, Rishi. I really, Jeremy, these guys, is it stupidity? Is it they don't care? Is it, I have no idea how to answer that question, but it has gone way beyond the pale.